Everyone, and welcome once again to one of our Hobby Memorial Library virtual events. We are thrilled because today we have a very special guest. I met him when I called his organization, and he was completely delightful. And I asked him to speak with us, and he is here today. This is Commander Carlton G. Philpot, U.S. Navy retired and chairman and project director of the 6888th Monument Projects. And he is going to be telling you guys what all that means. It's very exciting. So, welcome, sir. How are you today?
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's been a joy working with you these past few months to make this a reality. And I really want to appreciate those on Facebook, the high school students, faculty and staff, and the military personnel for taking time out to listen to an old man talk about something he loves very much. And for those who don't know, of the 8 monuments I have the pleasure of working with over the last 33 years, this one, the 688 monument, is closest to my heart and to the ladies that I've met. I met a lot of Buffalo soldiers, but working with the ladies and the families, I really got really close to it. I'm very protective of the accuracy of the history of
Okay.
being told correctly. So thank you very much. And one of the things I would like for you to take away from this presentation is this. Note the most common errors that people make in writings and presentations when I get to that part, and walk away. And if you're a student, if you're a faculty, you have children, high school, and those types of things. I help students with history projects, competition projects. We were working with the sixth graders in New Jersey, sixth graders in Memphis, and we have a ninth grader now who we met when she was in sixth grade, and she has a very loving relationship with the 688 veteran in Las Vegas. And that veteran is the one that Tyler Perry is using to feature in his movie coming up pretty soon. Well, good morning. Thank you. Let's get started.
Hey. Ready.
Mrs. Colonel Ovida Cup Hobby is a key person in the 688 Monument Project. And I was thrilled when I was going to be talking at her memorial library at Central Texas College. I never thought this would happen. And she's quite an impressive woman. And she was the first called the director of the Women Army Auxiliary Corps. Then they promoted her to colonel. So she was the first female colonel in the Army. And her role was to put together initially, one of them was the first officer candidate school for the Women Army Auxiliary Corps. And there was some issues with it. Back in the old days, some of the more fluent ones just wanted to come in and take rank right away as an officer. She pushed to have an officer candidate school. During those times, you didn't have to have a 4-year college degree as it is now. Next slide, please. It's a beautiful building.
Did it move to the agenda page?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay.
There are three parts of this presentation. The current history is what we did doing now, and some of the 855 women, there are 6 that are still with us. The youngest is 99, and the oldest is 103, and we'll get to that. Then the next part 2, is a historical background where you will see how things started, when they got to Europe, when they left to Europe, and some of their significant achievements. And this is where no matter how much information I give interviewers or their staff or TV and that type of thing, they always get it wrong. 95% of everything I see or read contain factual errors about the 688. I asked one lady, I worked with her for a while on TV, and when she put it out, she put out the wrong information. So I called her back. I said, "Why did you do that?" She said, "I wrote what I saw written the most, and what she's seen written the most was wrong." And the part 3 is just legacies that would need to be revealed and presented about women in the military. Next slide, please. Okay, in the red how many black WAC postal units were there? You hear people talking about the 688. So I'll tell you at the end. If I forget to tell you, remind me, please. Next slide. These are some key points, as I mentioned earlier. We as a people, or we as a gender, must not only read what is written about us, we must write what will be read. For instance, I'm working on a book, wrote the foreword for a book about the USS Indianapolis. Indianapolis was a ship that carried Little Boy, which was part of the atomic bomb for the Hiroshima. But coming back later, they were sunk, and the ship sunk in 15 minutes. They had 1,100 people on board ship, and the Japanese submarine sunk them in less than 15 minutes. Well, all the stories and movies do not talk about the black sailors that were on board. This particular book talks about the 28 black sailors. And so when I looked at the book, it says none of the black sailors survived. If they got in the water, they all drowned because blacks did not know how to swim because they did not have swimming pools. The swimming pools were segregated. So I asked the question, what about the Gulf of Mexico? We lived on the Gulf, we lived on the Atlantic Ocean, we lived in the Pacific Ocean, we lived along the Mississippi and the Missouri rivers, and we had ponds. They had to stop and think. So oftentimes people write stuff about women and minorities in their own perspectives. And so let's move on to the next slide. Private Gladys Schuster was one of the first earlier women of the 688. And she was co-founder of the National Association of Black Military Women. This organization was a strong supporter of the monument that we built. As a matter of fact, when we got ready to dedicate the monument in 2018, we were short a little cash. And so this organization at that convention in Atlanta raised over $3,000, which allowed us to bring 688 veterans and their caregivers to the dedication. And so we often say we're standing on the shoulders, but they are proud to see you women doing things in the military, making rank and achieving. I listened to a video about WACs last week, and they were talking about the WAC, starting off in a great history. Not once did they say anything about the black WAC. And so George Marshall, as I understand, according to that video, was a big proponent of women serving in the military. And in a letter that the U2 said, he said, women can do jobs better than men. He didn't say instead of men. He said better than men. Next slide. And I believe that. Go ahead. Now, these are 4 women who I call the granite guardians of the 688 and the women in the Army. Vita Harvey Cup to the right. And you see Eleanor Roosevelt, First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, and Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune. Both were big proponents of the women serving in the Army. Dr. Bethune was more particular about African Americans. And so FDR just left all the civil rights stuff to his wife. And Dr. Bethune formed the National Council of Negro Women. As a side story, Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt went down to Tuskegee, Alabama, where the black pilots were training, and all of a sudden she said, I want to take a ride in an airplane. The Secret Service did not know how to react. The bottom line, she flew. And because she flew, the Tuskegee Airmen and the black pilots' visibility and to go to war increased. Initially, they were just training them to satisfy the civil rights leaders. Harriet West Waddy is a unique character in the women in the Army. Harriet West is from Missouri. I forget her maiden name, but before she joined the military, she was a personal secretary to Dr. Bethune, Mary McLeod Bethune. And she ended up being the black WAC to be commissioned in the Army. And I read a quote by her, and I didn't understand, and I think I got the right understanding now. She said, with my uniform, I can walk anywhere in the Pentagon and get things done. I think it was because of very light complexion. She's from mixed parents. And so I wanted to bring that out. Harriet Waddy West was the first black WAC promoted to major. And we'll talk about later about Charity Adams being threatened to be sued while she was in Europe. Well, they couldn't sue her because Charity Adams was not the most senior person in the Army, black WAC. She was the most senior black WAC in Europe, but not in the Army. Next slide, please. This is Dr. Bethune. If you get a chance to see the monument and visit our website, as in the right-hand corner, we have a quote at the top of each panel on that monument. And this is the one I like. The worth of a race, as you see there must be measured by the character of its womanhood. How we treat women in this country or anywhere, even in my household, determines how happy I'm going to be. I'm going to experience it. This was a thought. And she was part of what they call the Black Kitchen Cabinet, a group of black women who were assigned to advise FDR on racial and affirmative action issues. And she formed the school, Bethune-Cookman College, down in Daytona Beach, Florida. And I was old enough to remember when she was on television and very prominent in society. Next slide, please. Now, these are some individuals that are very key to this project. The Buffalo Soldier Project to the right was the first one I had the pleasure of working on. It's $1.3 million. But what does it have to do with this project? And General Colin Powell is the originator of the idea of the Buffalo Soldier Monument. From that monument, there have been 7 other monuments erected. In the Buffalo Soldier Monument Park on Fort Leavenworth, there are 7 monuments. And there's one off-site at a minority African American museum. Eddie Dixon, the guy that you see in the middle, he has done all 8 bronze busts for my projects over the last 30 years. If you get a chance, visit his website. He's a master sculptor. He delves into civil rights issues, social justice issues. Somebody asked Eddie, how much does Carlton pay you? He said, until Carlton runs out of money. And working with Eddie all these 30 years, I always knew that if I ran out of money, Eddie would finish the project. So it's not so much me as we got a lot of help. You've heard the saying that if you see a turtle on a post, you know that someone put it there. And that's the way I feel right now. You see me talking to you now. A lot of people help. I'll try to give some of those people credit. And it's a pleasure to dedicate the statue to General Colin Powell. And got some personal stories, but we'll move on to next. That's for another presentation on the Buffalo Soldiers. This is not a posed picture. This is during the day of the dedication. This young lady here is Master Sergeant Elizabeth Ann Helms Frazier, one of the most dedicated members of the 688 Monument Committee. I got a call from her one night from Maryland asking to volunteer. And so Elizabeth is still working now, and she's very involved and very dedicated. She became almost like a daughter to a couple of the ladies, one in Maryland that she would take to get a driver's license, groceries, and the one that's in Vegas that's going to be featured in the movie with Tyler Perry. She calls her just about every day or every other day. Master Sergeant Elizabeth Helms Frazier. She says, thank you for doing, I did too. Remember, the people that went before you, they did, so you could do today for the military personnel. And for the non-military personnel, I'm pretty sure some of them are in your family. Next slide, please. This is an aerial view of the Buffalo Soldier Monument Park at Fort Leavenworth. 30 years ago when I arrived, it was just an empty field. But we call this a holy historical site. Why? When the Civil War in 1865, the black soldiers started, and Congress authorized the formation of 6 all-black units with white officers, 2 cavalry and 4 infantry. We'll talk about the infantry right now. The 9th Infantry started down near New Orleans, and the 10th Infantry at Fort Leavenworth. When the black soldiers started arriving around August or September of 1866, they would not allow them to sleep in the buildings. They had to sleep in outdoors, and some died. So when we put this monument up, we did not know that fact. And I tell people all the time, the Lord works in mysterious ways, and he picks the most unusual people to do the things that are needed the most when they are needed the most. And when we dedicated the Buffalo Soldier Monument, someone put flags on every Buffalo soldier in the country that day without being asked. And one person walked up to me and said, on this day in Leavenworth, I think the city is better and the people feel better. So next slide, please. This is the one that's not on Fort Leavenworth. This is the Female Buffalo Soldier Project Monument. It's a very small project. It laid in waiting almost 20 years. Eddie Dixon did the bust to the right, and I was not allowed to put it on Fort Leavenworth because some people felt it was an illegal enlistment because Kathy Williams listed as William Kathy. If you heard about this before today at the end of Q&A, let me know. Kathy Williams was a slave. Now you notice that Kathy Williams, Kathy spelled with an A. When she reversed her name as William Kathy, it's spelled with an E on her official records. In those days, she was in a city outside of Kansas City called Long Jack. And when the Union soldiers arrived in the area, any possible sympathizers to the Civil War, they ran them out of town, and she went to Jefferson City, Missouri. In those days, anytime a slave did not have a master, they could be conscripted into the army. And she was conscripted into the army as a cook in laundries. And she followed General Sheridan around the country. At the end of the Civil War, she came back to St. Louis area and joined at Jefferson Barracks right outside of St. Louis as William Kathy. A few people knew that she was a guy. She said she joined because she wanted to serve her country. Next slide, please. Just by the way, all this, that monument you see back there, go back a slide. Everything you see there was donated within 30 days. That's how things happen in mysterious ways. If you have a good project, good intentions, and you do the right things, I think the right things will happen for you. Next slide, please. Now, the tender part of my heart, we call these the angels of morale. If you can see, there are halos over some of the latest heads. We located 15 of the 855 women. On the monument, I'll show you later, there are 841 names, and we've located 8 more since we dedicated the monument in 2018. And the ladies in the wheelchairs are the 5 that came to the dedication. And the weekend before the dedication, my wife and I was en route back from St. Louis, and there was a blizzard in Missouri and in Leavenworth. We had to get off the road. I'm worrying about the dedication a week from that day. When these ladies arrived in town on Wednesday, the snow stopped. On Thursday, what you see there, the 29th, the sun came out for a couple hours for these ladies to visit the monument. On Friday, the next day, the sun shined bright and it warmed up for a parade. We gave them a parade because these women left this country without a parade and they came back home without a parade. So go to our website, you will see the parade. Next slide, please. These are the 6 living ones now. Major Phantom McClendon served for 2 years in the 688, and she got out as a captain. She's the only officer that we've located. She joined the Air Force later, she and her husband, and she retired as a major in the Air Force. The lady in the middle is Corporal Lena Bell King. She's the one that's from Vegas. We call her the Diva from Vegas. She was sharp when she came to the dedication. She's the one that's being featured by Tyler Perry. I flew to Vegas last week for a day to attend a 100th birthday party. And people did not believe that she's 100. The lady to the right is Private First Class Crescendia Garcia. She made national news during COVID as a 100-year-old surviving COVID. The one to the left, Detman, we just located her last year. She lives in Florida. They just named the street after her. We're lady. Later, the one in the middle, Private First Class Annie Wilson Robinson. I'm going to go to her 99th birthday party in March. She is the baby of the group. And the one to the right is Private Catherine Romay Johnson Davis. She is the oldest of the 6 living today at 103. When you see her picture, you'll know she is as sharp mentally as can be. When I heard about her, I was trying to locate her in Montgomery, where I used to be stationed in the early 70s. And turned out my best man at my wedding used to sell real estate with her. She got a black belt in karate in the mid-70s. Next slide, please. The next slides talk about these ladies individually. The picture to the right was taken in July of last year, and that is one of her paintings that she does. She's very talented. She was a model, and what most people don't know, if you read Charity Adams' book on page 190, she was one of the assigned drivers to Charity Adams, the commanding officer of the 688. Next slide, please. This is the second oldest, 102-year-old Private First Class Garcia. To the left, she was honored in Carnegie Hall back in 2021. The lady to the right at that time was the current president of the National Association of Black Military Women. I've not talked to Ms. Crescendia, but I've talked several times with her daughter and sent various emails. I look forward to talking with her one day soon. Next slide, please. Ah, the diva from Vegas. To the right was last Friday when I went to her birthday party and she's making a grand entrance. At her 98th birthday party, she was at the club jitterbugging. To the left is the day they visit the monument on 29 November. Several of the ladies that saw their names on the monument cried. They said after all this time, we thought they had forgotten about us. So what you're looking at is 841 of the 855 names, and we have 8 or 9 more that we've located. So one day we will put a plaque next to the monument identifying those. And we made a couple of mistakes on the monument also that we're going to have to correct. Next slide, please. This is Miss Detman. She lives in Ruskin, Florida. That face always impressed me. It's a strong face, but it's not a mean face. And they recently named a street after her in East Orange, New Jersey. I got a chance to visit her last summer. I had a long layover in Tampa, and I went to her house, and I talked with her on the phone. I said, "Why did you join the Army?" She said, "All the men at home were old and young, so I joined to get me a man." But she has a great sense of humor. Most of these ladies did have a sense of humor. I have not run across one angry person yet. The same with the Buffalo Soldiers. When I first heard about how badly they were treated, I was angry. I said, it's the same old stuff. The worst horses, the worst food, the worst treatment, et cetera, et cetera. After being around the Buffalo Soldiers, none of them were angry. So why not just focus my energies on getting things done? It was a pleasure visiting with her. She lives with her daughter, and they have a beautiful view of a lake. Next slide, please. Uh, I'm going to her 99th birthday in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A buddy and I drove from Kansas City to Wisconsin during the summer when Colonel Cummings, who led the effort for the Congressional Gold Medal, was traveling around the country, making presentation of a copy. So I was able to go up there, just drive overnight, about 500, 600 miles to visit with her for that event. With her, I always tell her she owes me $20. I sent her a hat, 688 hat. I haven't got my $20. So I would ask her over the years, where's my money? It's on the way. Then the next time she told me it's in the bank, then she said, no, it's in the mint. So I'm going to try to go back to her March 5th birthday. Next slide, please. This is Major Fanny McClendon, the only officer that we located. As I understand it, the last time I talked with someone, she still drives to McDonald's to get her a cup of coffee and something. You see that apple pie there on the countertop each week. And her memory is fantastic. And we showed her the monument, the statue on top of the monument of Charity Adams. She said, that monument don't look like Charity Adams. But she was right. Last year before last, she took a ride on a helicopter. So these women are very sharp. They are very proud of being recognized today by so many people. Next slide, please. This is the monument from the front and from the back. Just a good, clear view of it. It's located in a beautiful location by the lake. And I don't have time to tell you all the people that helped us. It's about how can you build a $250,000 monument with $80,000 in cash? The hand of providence. I was having lunch with a friend. He said, do you need some night lights? I said, yes. He said, I'll have my electricians come over and install them for you. Every drop of cement since the Buffalo Soldier Monument has been donated. Every hole has been dug for free. And when we did the Buffalo Soldier Monument, the owner, all I had to do was pay for the labor. And I'm working, and several of these people, I'm working with the third generation, the grandfather, the father, and the grandchildren. That is the blessings. So 841 names out of 855. The statue that you see is made out of resin because we could not get to the foundry. Supposed to replace it with bronze before then, but COVID broke out and we didn't make it. So the sculptor is doing it for free, so I can't demand too much. Master Sculptor Eddie Dixon. Next slide, please. Visit his site, historical art in bronze. So now, some historical things. As I mentioned earlier, 95% of everything that I read, see, and hear contain factual errors about the 688. And that is the most, I think, in my opinion, one of the most disrespectful things that you can do for these women is not to tell the truth about their history. And so if you notice at the top, being correct is not always accurate. Being correct is not always accurate. Your school sent an athletic team to the Olympics, and you say the school sent an athletic team to the Olympics. That is correct. But to be accurate, you have to say the school sent the girls' basketball team, the junior high school girls' basketball team to the Olympics in Japan. Now you're accurate. And until recently, and everything that you're going to see mostly is that the 688 was an all-black, all-female unit. And start writing, it consisted of women from 40 states and Puerto Rico. Say, oh, that doesn't sound right. That's not accurate. So we now say the 688 is a predominant black unit with 855 predominant black women, Puerto Rican, Mexican, and we even have one Austrian lady with an Austrian heritage. And some people do not want to change that. Well, you're with the American, all we black people got all these Italians and Haitians and all that mixed in. You can't identify them all. But we can be more accurate than what we're saying about all black. They were not all black. And too often, black women and blacks have been left out of history. I said earlier, too often, black women achievements are written with invisible ink. That's not the case now. And people say they're the only group of all black women to deploy overseas. That's not correct. It's not accurate. They are the only women Army Corps unit to deploy overseas. To the right, you see these nurses over here. They deployed to Liberia in 1943. And if you know the history, Liberia is where they wanted us, the government and others wanted to redeploy blacks back to Africa, and they sent them to Liberia with not much support, and a large percent of them died when they first arrived. And the nursing unit to the bottom arrived in Europe in August of 1944. The 688 did not arrive until what? February 1945. They are not the only black group of women to deploy overseas. I still see that in writing. Now, they say that the 688 sorted 7 million letters during the 12 months that it was assigned to the European theater of operation. Let's pause here for a moment. They say they were assigned to Europe. Yes, they handle mail in Europe. They handle mail of the troops in Europe. Well, that's for the military people. You probably know the European theater of operation can stretch a long ways. During World War II, the European theater of operation included all of Europe, West and Northern Africa, the Mediterranean, as well as the Mideast and Italy. So it wasn't just Europe. So when you see people writing the 688 sorted mail for all the troops in Europe, that's another mistake. They sorted mail for all the military services and all the technical support, civilians, politicians, Red Cross, all of those people they sorted mail for. And when they say they sorted 7 million letters, that's not correct. If you have a mathematician out there, calculate 65,000 letters every 8 hours times 3 times 30 and tell me at the end how many. That mail has been accumulating for 2 to 3 years in large warehouse buildings, and I have not seen one of those buildings from the inside, but as it explained to me in Charity Adams' book, like a large aircraft hangar, 6 of them. And when they arrived in Europe, the 7 million comes from change of location cards that are in the directory, the postal directory, 688 Central Postal Directory Battalion. Is as you go to the post office, when you change locations or get reassigned, you put a card in by the computer now that you're leaving here, going to another place. Over 2 to 3 year periods, every time a guy moved, hadn't heard from home, is a baby born or whatever, they submitted a card every chance they get change of location card. There were 7 million names in the directory, but there were thousands of duplicates. And of those duplicates, 7,500 of them was Robert Smith. Well, how did the 688 differentiate these names? They had their service numbers on most of them, and some of them just has listed as Junior or Bubba. So these ladies did an outstanding job. Just to say that they sorted mail is not correct. They established a new process and procedure for redirecting mail. So they say that they departed the European theater operation in February 1946. That's not true. They departed the European theater of operation on 2 March from Le Havre, France, in 2 March 1946. The number February 46, the significance of that number is when the COMZ that they were assigned to, those that may not know, a communication zone follows the battle zone. This is where all the supplies, support, mail distribution, getting people cars and things like that. That's where they do all administrative type stuff, truck drivers and those types of things. Their mission ended in February 1946. But they kept them in Europe for a while because they were contemplating sending them to the Pacific Ocean. And we know how the war ended there. Next slide, please. Now, you'll see some places listed this as a WAC unit. Man, when we saw this We say, man, this is fantastic. This is a great bunch of ladies. And to find out, the lady in the middle is Joe Louis' wife. And man, Joe Louis' wife was in the 688. Man, we got a lot of publicity out of that. It was a public affairs stunt. She was an actress and a singer. And I think they were trying to gin up support for women, especially black women, joining the army. And I saw the movie about Joe Louis. He met her, according to the movie, in a restaurant. Marva Trotter. They married twice. Next slide, please. This is another common mistake, and we made this mistake too. The lady in front is Major Charity Adams, the most senior black WAC in Europe. The lady behind her in the Navy, the XO usually follows the commanding officer on inspections. Well, that's not the Navy. That's not the Navy, that's the Army. The second lady back there were three commanding officers. This is Mary Kearney, the second commanding officer. And this inspection was done 3 days after they arrived in Europe on 15 February. That's her discharge papers. And I'm talking with her niece now with a lot of original stuff. So next slide, please. Now, the historical background. We talked about the modern day ladies, ones relocated. We talked about some of the common mistakes that are being made. Now we're going to talk about some specific historical background information. There were 3 black postal units. Why are we only talking about the 688? Just one of them. Next slide, please. Well, this is a map that my son-in-law did for me. And there were about over 6,000 black women in all of the military services at the beginning of World War II. They were assigned across all of the various posts across the country. So they sent out for volunteers. And they came together in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, around the Tennessee line. They came there for battle training, masks, how to put on your battle gear, how to put on your life jackets and stuff like that. And the commanding officer of Fort Oglethorpe told the women, you go out in town, I can't protect you. You go out at your own risk because of racial issues. And they stayed there from around November until late January, when they left there, next slide, and caught the train and left Fort Oglethorpe to go to Fort Shanks, New York. Also, I learned recently that there was a group of Puerto Rican WAC units during World War II. They were assigned just to the Port Authority in New York. The Puerto Ricans also trained at Fort Oglethorpe. They left there on a train ride, over 700. When they got to Fort Shanks, New York, next slide, please. They left on 4 February. Now, according to the manifest, some people say they left on the 3rd. I took the manifest of the ship because sometimes we're civilians, they say it's still nighttime, so it's still, they think it's the 3rd, but that ship's manifest is going to be more accurate. As a navigator on several ships, we try to leave on time and get there on time. About 3,500 miles they drove across. As a side note to break the monotony up, the lady to the left is the lady that discovered the GPS system that you're now using in your car and your phones. Dr. Gladys West, she worked for the Navy in Dahlgren, Virginia, right outside of Maryland and DC. Go ahead, next slide. They had to dodge and zigzag submarines going across, not because they were the 688. All ships going across had to zigzag to try to avoid the German submarines. Well, we lost a lot of ships. Now, the newspapers, the Pittsburgh Courier was the largest black newspaper during that time. You had another paper in Chicago. Your parents may remember this odd color paper. And they called the ship Ile de Fleur, French transport ship converted. They would add an extra stack to try to camouflage the ships. And they went over on several ships. I'd ask the lady, what ship did you go over? Queen Mary, Queen Elizabeth. This. I said, what ships? I finally realized they went over on a variety of ships, and the last ship that came back was the SS Claremont Victory. So you can take Google those, and one of the things on the ships that I found interesting, and you'll see later, when they got ready to come back home, as I said, Charity Adams was the most senior person. I'll say that story for later. Next slide, please. A black newspaper took this picture. This guy's daughter was in this group, and he went over to take the picture. They are debarking from the Ile de Fleur. A bomb went off nearby. They got on the train in England after some donuts and coffee, and they arrived in England on 12th February, late in the evening. And they met the first black general, B.O. Davis Sr. Next slide, please. Connection Charity Adams to B.O. Davis Sr. was that she was part of his Army ROTC program when he was at Wilberforce. And as a black colonel, they didn't have too many places to send him. So they sent him around to different colleges, black colleges. He became the first black one-star general in the Army. His son commanded the Tuskegee Airmen. Next slide, please. I wish I'd had this picture for the monument. Remember we talked about the mill had been stacked up for 2 to 3 years in about 6 large buildings. Let me try to give you a picture from my mind. Can you imagine 6 super Walmart stores, 6 of them? And they've been locked up for 2 years. And you got mails in Charity Adams' book. Said there are 6 large aircraft warehouses. Mail is stacked in large bags from floor to ceiling. See the windows, and the windows were covered with black cloth to minimize light being seen by attacking aircraft, and you can see the ceiling. So imagine 6 of these buildings full of these mails bags stacked to the ceiling. And so now you get a visual perception of what these women did. Next slide, please. And this is some of the food boxes. Imagine cakes and Christmas presents and food being locked up in a building, rats, rodents, all other type of things there. Broken windows, poorly lit lights. And it was harsh working conditions. It was cold. It's February. One of the ladies told us 3 of the ladies had to leave immediately, coming back to the States with pneumonia. And some of the things that they would say about these women in America was not what they said by the women. They were treated better over there than they were in the States. And the lady in Vegas was with the National Public Service Radio, I think. They took 2 days to Utah. And year before last November, they said, we're going to air your interview on TV. And she told all her friends, asked us to spread the words. We spread the words. It was in November. You know what they used from all that interview? They called me a nigger. That's all they ever used. It hurt that lady so bad, she cried and cried. The guy tried to write an apology letter. I threw it in the garbage. People have ulterior motives for whatever they're going to do. They had problems with cosmetic items for black women, but at least the curling iron tongue was invented by the French. So some of the local ladies that you see in Charity Adams' book, they get invited out to dinner and that type of things by the locals. But they started keeping the ladies long and longer. Reason? They heard at midnight the women grew tails. That's an old story. The only problem they had was with the Red Cross, who wanted to build them a separate building with just the black wax. And Charity Adams said, we'll never step a foot in that building. They didn't. Next slide, please. This is how they set the mill. So if you're a researcher, there's a book about 800 pages written by Treadwell. She was in the same graduating class with Charity Adams, the first one for the Women Army Auxiliary Corps at Fort Des Moines hour. The tongue is getting dry. On 29 August 1942. And she wrote in her book in 1950s, mid-1950s, Now, there was a black unit in Europe worse to this effect. They had great military bearing and they marched very good, but they were inefficient. Now, this is in the 1950s. And she knew that the director of the WAC had written in her diary that the 688 broke all Army records sorting mail. And in 90 days, 65,000 partials every 8 hours, 195,000 a day. And then in 90 days, that's almost 17.5 million partials that they redirected. Now, they didn't deliver mail. Some of the writings say that they delivered mail. They were not postal clerks. It's like you go to the post office and drop a letter off, the person behind the counter collects it and set up by zip codes. They set up by whatever system they had. They invented a system that allowed increased the proficiency of the Army to redirect the mail. So it was amazing that she would write that in the book. And the Center Military History approved that. And she knew doggone well who Charity Adams was because they graduated in the same class. And Charity Adams is noted now as the first black WAC to be commissioned in the Army. Well, the rest of the story is Charity Adams should have been the first woman commissioned in the Army. Because if you know about commissioning, they commission you alphabetically. And Adams was the first name on the program. I have a copy of that program. I didn't have computers that they could change programs around. So between the time that the program was printed and the time graduation occurred, they changed the order in which they were going to present. Why, I don't know. I guess being an old man like myself, maybe they didn't want Charity Adams to make history. And so when I put on the monument that Charity Adams was the first black WAC to be commissioned, I got flack from the Center of Military History because they said being the first black WAC is no achievement. She's only the first black WAC because her name ended in 8. But I didn't know enough at the time. My comeback should have been, she should have been the first. I didn't know that at the time. Next slide, please. They redirected mail. They did not deliver mail. So after they had been in France from 12 February, and Europe from 12 February, they went to Paris, France, Rouen, France, and then Paris, France. The war ended while they were in Rouen, France on B-Day, 8 May, I think. I'm Navy, so don't hold me against all these dates and these Army dates now. And they also won softball and basketball championships. I intentionally did not put that on the monument. I'm tired of reflecting when they talk about sports. And that's just me. I'm nearly 80 years old. That's just me. And when my daughter was going to college, if I got a book, a college catalog that showed only blacks in athletic gear, I threw it in the garbage can. I wanted to see them in the chemistry lab, the physics lab, and the algebra labs. And they also donated $4,500 to the United Negro College Fund. There were 32 colleges at that time. Now, while in Paris, France, 3 ladies were killed in a military vehicle accident. You're going to see in a lot of writers, and we thought so too, it was a Jeep. No, it was not a Jeep. It was a weapons carrier. If there's any military Army people here, there's a 4x4 Dodge military weapons carrier, which is larger than a Jeep. And the Jeep was legally checked out to go to a social event. And in that Jeep with them were 2 males and 3 ladies. It was an organized, authorized event trip they were making. On the way back, they had an accident. The only survivor was the male driver. I'm trying to track him down now. And we read the autopsy report. I mentioned Captain Kearney, the second commanding officer. Her niece has the autopsy report. And the way they describe the black bodies is atrocious. That's all I can say. And so there are 4 women buried in Normandy. Next slide, please. And 3 of those are the 688 veterans. And I think I might have missed a slide. But anyway, there are 3 of them there. Anybody from Connecticut? One of those ladies from Connecticut. This is the Army Meritorious Unit Commendation We were fortunate enough to get about a 5-inch thick binder from one of the officers in the 688. She was a public affairs officer for the 688. And a friend of mine went to the latest house for a funeral, condolences for a funeral for the family. And one of the ladies heard I was doing this project, and she shipped that to me. And in the personal papers of Major Margie Barnes, she wrote, one of the things that stuck in the crow, she didn't say crow of the women, was they never got a unit award. They got the personal awards, but not a unit award for the superb performance of their military duties, breaking all Army records and connecting those on the battlefront and the home front. And so we initiated, our committee initiated possibly a request for the Army Meritorious Unit Commendation. And Senator Moran from Kansas, U.S. Senator, walked it all the way up to the Secretary of the Army's desk and sat at his office and pushed for this. We didn't get it by the time of the dedication in November, but by February it was approved. That really made them feel good. Next slide, please. Right, concurrently after the in February, when the Meritorious Unit Commendation was approved, Colonel Edna Cummings was another committee member, and she's a strong advocate for the 688. And she's also an advisor on the opera being done by on the 688 by Blair Underwood. And she's also the historian advisor on the legacy tour by the Stephen Ambrose trip to Europe. You have to read what is written by you about you and write what would be read. Ambrose sent out an email the other day saying that one of the latest, Barlow, was killed in action and received the Purple Heart. Barlow was killed in a vehicle accident. So hopefully when you finish today, you'll have some historical facts that you can correct things. Next slide, please. There's Barlow. I got this picture from Barlow's family in Connecticut. Her father was the first black judge in Connecticut. And the lady, Kearney's nieces, just visited the Military Affairs Committee in Congress for the state, and they're going to do a resolution for the 688. And to the right is the headstone for Bankston. And the other lady is Brown. We don't have anything on Brown. And so there are three, like I say, 4 women in Normandy, 3 are the 688. Next slide, please. Part 3. Legacies to be revealed. Legacies to be revealed. There were 3 WAC units. Don't get ask me. There are a lot of achievements by women in civilian life and the military. And I hope that you all will go back and talk about those. Next slide, please. Now, before I talk about the monument at the top, conceptual drawings, that is the conceptual drawing that we were very ambitious back in 2014 about doing the 688 monument. Because we had just dedicated General Powell's monument that September. And I showed that to General Powell. He said, "Are you for real?" Well, when you're young at heart, you have these wild dreams. Well, to the left of the nurses, there's no monument to Black nurses. There's no monument to the Puerto Rican nurses. There are no monuments to the first 14 ladies to the right, Golden 13 that joined the Navy early on. The one in the middle is the Army Band. Just as the 688 was given 6 months to clear the backlog of mail in Birmingham, England only. I've not found any deadline in Rouen, France, and Paris, France. But we know that in Birmingham, England, they had 6 months. Working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they did it in 3 months. Now for the band, Charity Adams at Fort Des Moines Hour wanted to form a band. They had a white band, but Charity Adams wanted to form a band. And they were given so many weeks to learn to play military music. Now, this band of Black women that made up the band were music teachers, musicians, and hearing Charity Adams talk on a program, I didn't know. I was looking at Charity Adams when I saw that. They had IQs of 130. Their problem was they never played military music. They met the deadlines and they started traveling around the country. And somebody had the bright idea to deactivate the band. That's the only black band in the United States Army. And the conceptual monument at the top, when we had difficulty getting it approved, the 688 monument approved at Fort Leavenworth, we took this to NASA. The Hidden Figures movie had just come out. And I made it through the Public Affairs Department to see if they were interested in doing a monument for those ladies. And the answer was not a no. By the time, before I could go much further, Fort Leavenworth authorized the project. And this is the last slide. And I think I've probably taken up too much of your time today, but I want to thank you all for this. Do the quiz and let me know how you come out. And it's been an honor to be asked to participate, and especially at Oviedo Cup Hobby Memorial Library. That's especially special for us. And I will be giving my first Navy presentation in March. All my stuff has been to the Army, and for the Army people out there, I was sent out to pasture at Fort Leavenworth back in 1989, so my blood right now is Army Green. Army Green. The Army's treated me really well, and you all have been very patient with me, an old man telling the story. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. Ms. Asha?
Well, thank you so much. And everybody, we do have questions and a quiz that we're going to be posting in the comments. Just to test your learning of what you've learned today. What you've made is previously invisible stories visible. And we thank you so much for that, because getting it from someone who has spent so many years finding the truth, finding out the details from the actual people, is so special to us. So we truly thank you for that.
Is anyone going to ask me that question?
So how many postal WAC units were there? I wrote it down 3 times.
There were 3 black postal units. 2 of them went, 688 is the only one that went overseas. I still have not found out how they got the designation of 6888. But the other two went to Fort Huachuca. They were the 32nd and 33rd. Why Fort Huachuca? That's where they sent a lot of black soldiers and the Buffalo Soldiers during that time to Fort Huachuca. So they did not perform all postal duties. But keep in mind, one of the ladies assigned to that unit was a master graphic artist. And you see writings saying that the black women were not very intelligent. Well, these ladies had IQs of 130. One was a certified opera singer. They were teachers and working for the government. So they were not dumb women. And I hate it. They say the same thing about black men. We're not very smart. But ladies, I'm grateful to my mother. I danced with the woman that brought me here, and I danced with the woman that sustains me, my wife. I have 2 beautiful daughters. One has given me 2 grandsons, and one has given me a grandson and daughter. And that granddaughter, I try my best to spoil her, but she's too independent. She's only 12, and she thinks she's 40. And once I close this project down, my efforts forward will be to try to raise $50 million for sickle cell. I almost lost my grandson just before Thanksgiving to a very serious attack of sickle cell. Been talking about it for years. So now it's not what you're going to do, it's when you're going to do it. So for the first time, I put in my autograph, my bio. This is what I like to do to enhance awareness, increase research, government allocations, and a cure for sickle cell. I will be driving to Oklahoma to talk with an African guy. There's a yam supposedly keeps the cell from sickling. And I want to find out more about that. And hopefully you'll hear more about it. In the 60s and 70s, we did take blood tests. Taking blood tests before you got married was common. It's not common as it is now. We didn't take a blood test and I got married. I think if we have, I would have realized that my wife was recessive, and my daughter and her husband were both recessive. So of the two grandsons, one had sickle cell. He's doing fantastic now. And we're very grateful for that and very blessed for that. So, and thank you all for listening. Right, you must read what is written and write what will be read, especially you high school students that are listening and college students. Delve into the history and remember, just because it's correct does not make it accurate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I truly appreciate your talking with us today. And don't go anywhere. Before we go, guys, we wanted to remind you that we rescheduled our 10 warning signs of Alzheimer's. It was for February 1st, and we have moved it to February the 15th, which is next Wednesday, and it'll be here on Facebook. And then the day after that, in the library, we're going to have an event about allergies. Everybody here in Texas, especially this area, has allergies. So that should be something interesting, and that one will be in the library. So, yes.
Alzheimer's, both my mother and father passed with dementia, so every time I forget something, I begin to worry. So,
well, then you may want to watch this. This will be a virtual, so you can watch this one.
Sometimes you don't want it. Sometimes you don't want the truth. Thank y'all very much.
All righty. Well, guys, you guys have an awesome day today, and we'll see you next time. Stay dry. All righty.
I love your feedback on Facebook. Thank you.
We will. We will. Thank you, sir. Bye, guys. And Alyssa, if you will take us out and don't go